What's up, everyone? It's been a little while, huh? Back for the first time. Not really, but it's been about 2 weeks. However, I'm sure you know my voice if you've been listening to this podcast for the last 61 episodes that I've been doing this. But my name is Raphael Garcia. This is episode 62 of the Let's Talk Wrestling podcast. As always, I want to thank you for taking the time to listen to this show. You can find our work in multiple areas, including YouTube, Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple iTunes, Breaker as well. You can always check out MMAratings.net, which is where we put all of our content up, including the written work of Adam Martin and Shawan Humes. I'm finally returning to writing this week as well. Probably going to do some pieces tonight. And you can catch us on social media at MMA Me, you can hit me up at rgarcia_sports. So we got a little bit to talk about today. It's been 2 weeks since I've done a show. A lot of things have happened. I'm going to talk about some of those too, mainly the speaking out movement, which I think everyone should address if they have a platform in this industry. It's worth talking about. So I want to say a couple of things about that. I have Great American Bash and Fyter Fest to harp on from this week. A little bit of New Japan Cup action. And yeah, it's Bret Hart's birthday. So happy birthday to the best there is, best there was, and the best there ever will be. I'm going to talk about that a little bit too as well. So let's just jump right into it and focus on the Great American Bash first, which was on Wednesday, both this and Fyter Fest. And it was a good show. I enjoyed it. And I always like to look at the variations that come when it's analysis on wrestling Twitter about shows. Because I enjoyed Great American Bash. There were some spots that weren't as great as others. Totally agree with it, but I enjoyed everything the show had to offer. For the most part, I would give it a B. It seemed like the general consensus was that people enjoyed the show as well. But it's always funny to see some platforms that go 180 degrees in the other direction. It's always intriguing. You see it with AEW as well a little bit, but not as much with WWE though. It's either one side or the other. But either way, I enjoyed this show. There's a lot to really like. Io Shirai versus Sasha Banks. Sasha Banks is becoming the AEW ratings killer 2 weeks in a row. She's been a part. Her and Bailey. I'm not going to put all the credit on Sasha, but her and Bailey once again as a combination. This time it was Sasha in the main event against Io, and they tore it the fuck up. I was hoping they were going to give them the whole last half hour. They did not. I think they got about 20 some odd minutes or something like that. Let me see if there's anywhere that has the let me see if there's anywhere that had Great American Bash. Let's see. Because I'm curious. 2020. This match, it went 20, oh no, it went 14 minutes. It felt like it went much longer, but it went 14 minutes. I'm surprised that the Dexter Loomis Roderick Strong match went longer. Still, it was a very, 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 very enjoyable show, and this match was amazing. The abilities of Io and Sasha are amongst the best in the industry. And you were at a time where Tessa Blanchard is a free agent and she's being talked about coming into WWE. And I see a lot of people talking about her like she's the best in the game right now. And I love Charlotte Flair. I think Charlotte's number one. But there's so many women that could be in consideration for number two. Asuka, Io, Sasha, Bailey, Becky. I mean, well, I'm not going to front. I think Becky's the worst worker of the four horsewomen, but that's another conversation for another day. Seeing Sasha and Io get the prime spotlight like this was amazing. I loved everything about this match from the entrance all the way up to the finishing sequence. I had no complaints. Uh, the way it ended with Asuka coming in, hitting Sasha with the mist, and Io goes for the pin. We're going to talk about that in a second. But this has to give us Io versus Asuka, Io and Asuka versus the Golden Role Models, right? It has to. I would not be surprised if that match was announced for next week's Great American Bash. Would not be surprised in any way, shape, or form. And it would be smart. Put this on as the co-main event. Adam Cole versus Keith Lee as the main event. It will be smart, and I wouldn't blame WWE at all. So Bayley's there doing her thing, and Bayley's character, I described it on Wednesday as she's basically Angelica from the Rugrats, and it's hilarious to watch. She, it's the way people hated this character when she first turned heel, and her growth in the role has been important to see. I think that she is very special at playing this role, playing this character, and yeah, at some point in time, she's going to go back being face. But this, I hope there's pieces of this that she keeps in her character, regardless of what shade she is on the spectrum, because she's definitely becoming very enjoyable to me. And the women continue to lead the way for WWE. Last week, NXT defeated AEW, and the main event was Sasha and Bayley against Dakota and Shotzi Blackheart. They won that. They won those ratings. This week, even bigger match, and they win again. I hope, I wouldn't want them to move Sasha back or move any of these women back around or anything like that. But I think that with proper booking and with proper, promotion, the women are the way to go right now. Like they're the way to go. They're interesting characters. I don't, I like Adam Cole, I like Undisputed Era, but they've kind of gone, about the way on the main roster. I like Drew. He's in the main event picture, but I don't like the SmackDown main event picture. The women consistently lead the way, and I think that this is yet another example of that situation. If this is the only area where WWE has a clear advantage over WWE or AEW, and I think that that's something that they need to continue to leverage. Dexter Lumis versus Roderick Strong. This was, I like the ring psychology from this match here. I am interested in what they do with Dexter Lumis. He got the victory here, and at some point, he has to be considered the foil for Karrion Kross, right? Because their characters are similar but different. It's like, I don't want to call it Spy versus Spy, that old Nintendo game from back in the day, but you have two guys who are playing the pseudo psychotic type of individual, and I think that it could work long term if they were booked right against one another. Uh, just don't have Dexter Lumis stalking Scarlett. That's not something we want to see right now. But I wonder if that's the direction that they're going to go, because Dexter Lumis is getting hot. I didn't like him when I thought his character was silly when he first came around in NXT, but he can work and he seems to be delivering from it. And I don't know what's next for him, but this was a good match, and I really enjoyed what they did with Lumis and Roderick Strong. I think Undisputed Era, I think their time is due. I feel like they've run their course on NXT. They're excellent as a group. I don't think that they need to be broken up. If anything, they need to go up to SmackDown as a unit, and they need to be dominant right out the gate. I saw something interesting or listened, or who said this? I'm not sure where I may have heard this. It was probably on Fightful. One of the guys was talking about there, but moving Braun and The Fiend over to Raw and bringing up Undisputed Era to be like the main event picture for us for SmackDown. I think that would be excellent to see Adam Cole battling maybe AJ Styles or Daniel Bryan for the SmackDown title. You have Roderick Strong going for the Intercontinental title, and Fish and O'Reilly going for the tag team titles. Basically what you did in NXT, but up against a whole new batch of individuals. Seeing UE versus the New Day, sign me up for that. Adam Cole against Daniel Bryan or AJ Styles, sign me up for a long-term storyline around that. Roderick Strong doing work with Chad Gable or anyone else that is on. Chad Gable, Cesaro, Sheamus, anyone else that's like in the mid tier section of SmackDown. Yep, I'll take all of that too. So let's see what's next for these guys. But I think it's time for them to move them up. Timothy Thatcher and Oni Lorcan, we knew what we were going to get here. We knew we were going to get just a 15-minute match of these guys going from, as Fife or not Fightful, as Voices of Wrestling will put it, from grapple fucking each other to beating the shit out of one another. And that's exactly what it was. This is some old school, just fisticuffs. Like, roll your sleeves up, spit out your tobacco, put out your cigarette. These two guys are going to fight, and that's exactly what it was. Thatcher looked good. Only Lorcan looked good as well too. I think he didn't come out looking weak. So this was fun. I mean, that's really basically it. This was fun. Rhea Ripley and Aaliyah, or excuse me, Rhea Ripley versus Aaliyah and Robert Stone. And I didn't hate this as much as everyone else, as everyone said they did. I think it was, or excuse me, I think it was enjoyable. I think it was funny at some points. I love the Robert Stone stuff that they're doing, and I love it in a sense where I'm like, this is something like I can laugh at. I wanted nothing else other than last week than him having a Colt 45 in his little brown bag. I would have been totally here for it. I don't care if it's not PG-13 or not. I mean, fuck, you had Steve Austin drinking the Steve Weisers. You had Becky Lynch in the ring with him drinking her beers, her beers as well. They could have pulled that off. They could have given Robert Stone a Colt 45 and a little bit of Billy Dee Williams just because. But anyway, this match here, I think WWE is trying to get back into intergender space. I wish they would just straight up do it. They had an opportunity to do it with Dakota Kai, and not Dakota Kai, excuse me, with Candice LeRae and Mia Yim when they were feuding Keith Lee and Johnny Gargano. I think that would have been a perfect time to do it. They did not. I hope if they are going to go back the intergender way, that direction, they need to make sure it is done with respect and it is done with believability. Because if it is not, people will let WWE know about it, and they're going to lose a lot of the momentum they have within that women's division. It has to be done respectfully. If not, they can really fuck this up because that's where all their momentum is. Rhea Ripley gets the victory. I think this would have worked if Mercedes Martinez made her return here. She's set to return at day 2 of Bash at the, or not Bash at the Beach, Great American Bash. She's set to return at day number 2. It'll probably just be a squash match, which I'm okay with because Martinez can squash with the best of them. However, if she would have come out as Stone's newest client and beat the fuck out of Rhea Ripley, or set up a match this week, or like the next show between them two, that's a prime way to begin fixing Ripley and to introduce Martinez as a badass. I would have been totally here for it. And yeah, that's really all I want to say about that. I already talked about Sasha and Bayley basically being the ratings killers. I think the gap this time was like 43, like the 423, something along those lines. AEW continues to win in the main demographic, which is 18 to 34. But overall, WWE has pulled in more viewers for the second week in a row. I don't think they're going to keep it up for 3 weeks. So I don't trust them to make the right decisions to keep that up. I really do think that Bayley and Banks are the best act right now in the North American professional wrestling. I love them more than Chris Jericho. I like them more than Kenny Omega and Adam Page. I like them more than anything else on the WWE roster. It's just because they're hilarious. They and they're a different type of hilarious from the Inner Circle. The Inner Circle is more Saturday Night Live funny, which okay, it's Saturday Night Live is funny. I get it. But Bayley and Sasha are more like the jerk off in class that says all the funny one-liners. Funny. I'm more of that comedy than I am of the Saturday Night Live comedy, and that's why it's working for me. Banks is really hitting that stride that a lot of people believe she had when before the injuries and before the tag team title debacle. A lot of people tabbed Sasha as probably the best 1-2 of the Four Horsewomen, and it kind of fell off. And a lot of it had to do with the internet shit that was going on with her, and none of it was her doing. But she's a special individual, and we're really seeing the best out of her right now. Something else I want to note is that WWE is continuing to lean on the people of color on their roster, and I am enjoying this. But I'm also apprehensive about it at the same time because I don't want to see these faces go away once things turn to quote unquote normal again. I mean, just look at who they've been leveraging. MVP, Bobby Lashley, R-Truth, Apollo Crews, Zelina Vega, Andrade, Angel Garza, Akira Tozawa, he has a title. The Street Profits. Actually, no, Akira Tozawa just lost his title. but he had a title. The Street Profits: Sasha Bailey, Asuka, Io, Keith Lee, Mia Yim. Who else have they been leveraging? Raquel Gonzalez. Kaden Carter was on TV last week. Even like some of the jobbers, Leon Ruff, my man, the MVP of the COVID wrestling era, Leon Ruff. He's been on television multiple times. He had fucking uh, a Titantron and intro music 2 weeks ago. So I hope that we continue to see WWE leverage the people of color and do something with that. So I'm going to turn my attention to Fyter Fest. Day one was also on Wednesday. I'm going to talk about a couple of highlights there. I'm not going to talk about everything. Y'all guys know how I feel about AEW, but there's some things I definitely want to talk about. Hikaru Shida and Penelope Ford. So Hikaru Shida is amazing. Period. She is. She is the individual that you put in the ring to get the best out of everyone else. She is their Cesaro. She is their Daniel Bryan. She is their AJ Styles. She can get the best out of everyone. And she got the best out of Penelope Ford on Wednesday. Ever since the first AEW event I went to, which is the first event that they had back in DC, I looked at their women's division and I was like, they're going to promote all of the individuals all of the women that look in a certain way. That's what and I was wrong in that assumption, but I just looked at it because I stayed for dark that night, and the match was, I think, Britt Baker, Penelope Ford, and a couple other people. Allie, I think, was in that match, and I'm like, these women all look just alike, other than Bea Priestley. All the other ones look just alike. However, say what you want about the way they booked the women's division, some individuals are doing what they need to do to stand out. And I think Penelope having a good match with Hikaru Shida helped. I'm not saying people went to this expecting less of her, but she definitely walked out of that giving them more than they thought. She excelled. She looked exceptional. And I think, that's really good for her. Yes, Shida did, a lot of the lifting there, but she had to carry her part of the weight as well, too. And I think she looked really good. Cody versus Jake Hager. So I don't give a fuck about Jake Hager. I'm going to make sure I say it every time his name pops up on this podcast. I wish he would go away. Actually, he is going away for a little while. He was suspended for 10 days from AEW, and that was announced on Twitter this week. The way it was announced was a bit shady because they put a tweet out that he's suspended and for 10 days, and they made it for, seeing how he attacked the ref after this match. But they put the post out there and you're not allowed to comment on it because they turned off the comments. And this is at a time where everyone knows he was one of the individuals named in speaking out. So, yeah, there's that. He needs to go the fuck away. I can't stand him. Anyway, Cody is great. I love him and Arn Anderson together. I think it works. However, there's something about him that's been missing for me the last few weeks. Even before, I want to say, I noticed it maybe in the MJF match. Something was a little bit off for me. And I saw someone tweet today or yesterday that the thing about Cody is that he's a lot like Velveteen Dream, in that not having the crowd around has impacted him greatly. And what I mean by that is Cody is a fantastic storyteller in the ring. One of the pieces that is important to be a good storyteller in professional wrestling is the crowd, hanging off of everything you do, hanging off of every word in a promo, hanging off of every action in the ring, every subtle nod, every subtle play. Like right now, they're hinting towards him turning heel, him and Anderson turning heel, as they're using some underhanded tactics to get some wins. And without the crowd there, those almost don't go over the same way. And that's something that Velveteen Dream struggled because like his gimmick just doesn't come off well. It comes off more as a creep when the crowd isn't there behind him. Cody is coming. It just comes off to me as I don't want to say boring, but it comes off as bland to me without the crowd there. All of his matches got to have some interference shenanigans. I get it. He's old school Southern wrestling. I get it. But When the crowd comes back, Cody's going to shoot. His matches are going to shoot back up for me. I think that and that's not indicative of him. It's just indicative of the climate that we're in right now. When I was at again, Cody's music when it hits fires you the fuck up. The crowd gets hyped, people start cheering, everything. Like everything about his music is perfect for him. When he's not there, when the crowd is not there, it just doesn't feel the same for me. And with him holding the workers title in air quotes for AEW, I just am I'm excited. I like the open challenges that they're doing. You know, my boy Ricky Starks, he's in there. We're gonna talk about somebody else too in a second. But my boy Ricky Starks, he's in there and I love it. But I'm almost over him. I'm almost at my point with him. And I hate to say that. Kenny Omega and Adam Page versus the Best Friends. Now I don't really care too much about the Best Friends, but Page and Omega, this is going to be the year when they split up, whether it be next year or whatever, that's going to be the angle of the year. They keep hinting at it, keep doing subtle nods. There's everyone's waiting on it. They're doing long-term booking around this, which is perfect. I wish they did the same type of long-term booking with the Cody and MJF thing. They did not. That's neither here nor there. But this turn is going to be huge, and I cannot wait for it. Actually, scratch that. I can wait for it, but it's just going to be epic when it happens. The tease with FTR at the end. Okay, I'm here with that. We're going to see what we get with that group. If they gave us a triple threat, FTR versus the Young Bucks versus Page and um, Omega, write the check. I don't care how much I got to pay to see that match. Write the check. Especially if events are live again, then I'm going. Write the fucking check. A question I had about Fyter Fest is how long can they keep going on with that gimmick? The Fire Festival was all the rave. Was it last year? Maybe the year before? We were talking about that. 2018. Yeah, we were talking about that. 2018. It was funny, but I mean, I think it may have gone its course by now. You think they'll stop talking about that? They got to change the name at some point, right? Right? I hope they do. Something I wanted to talk about as well was my boy. Well, he's not really my boy. I'm not gonna say that. Ricky Starks is my boy on AEW roster. I love that dude. But in the crowd at Fyter Fest was Brian Pillman Jr. Now, if you listen to this podcast, if you're about my age, I'm 36 years old, you know who the fuck Flying, and you watch wrestling, you know who the fuck Flying Brian Pillman is. Dude was one of the best characters back in that time of wrestling. He was a lunatic. Loved it. His son looks just like him, and his son is a good character worker. I am surprised he hasn't been linked to AEW already by this point. Well, maybe not so much surprised. I think he was contracted with MLW, but I don't know if he still is. I'm guessing he's not because he was on screen at Fyter Fest and he was actually backstage in his gear as well too. There's pictures of him in his gear with Jericho and stuff like that. So I don't know if he's going to be involved because Jericho was in his gear too. So I don't know if he's going to be involved in next week's show, but keep an eye on it because Brian Pillman Jr. is another individual that I would flip channels to see what they do with them. Just like my boy, Absolute Ricky Starks. Other stuff going on in wrestling. So I've finally taken advantage of this New Japan World account I have. I've been paying for probably about 2 years now, maybe a little bit longer, and I've used it maybe 5 times. I was a little frustrated with it when I couldn't log in. They updated their site, and now I can use it a little bit more. So I've been watching some of the New Japan Cup, and obviously I've watched all my boys' matches. Taiji Ishimori, watched all his matches. His match with Okada today, this morning, or on the second, was fucking amazing. But there's a lot of good wrestling there. So if you have a New Japan account, go back and watch as much as you can of the New Japan Cup. It's just great wrestling. That's like really like, and I like watching it with the Japanese commentary on, but it's just great, great wrestling. I'm gonna take a second to say happy birthday to Bret Hart again. I am probably it's 1:30 now, and I am probably still going to watch one of his matches before I go to bed. Maybe the match with Mr. Perfect from back in the day. I'm probably gonna watch that. But Bret Hart is the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be. Happy birthday to that guy. Yeah, man, he's something special. He was cool in the corniest of ways. He pulled women. I shouldn't say that, but he was the corniest of corny as a good guy, and he still made it work, and it was so cool. But Bret Hart, my dude, he kept me into wrestling. Um, I'm legit buying. Like I brought a pink Rey Mysterio shirt the other day. I'm gonna buy the Roots to Fight Bret Hart shirt once they restock. So I mean, he's fucking everything. So last thing I want to talk about was the speaking out movement that's been going on in professional wrestling. It started maybe about 2 weeks ago, and this is very important. And it's very important in the same way that the Me Too movement was important. It is very important with the same way that aspects of the Black Lives Matter movement is important. And the reason being is because this is our time to listen to the voices of people who have been marginalized in this space for way too long. The women and some of the men that have come forward to talk about the transgressions that have been done to them, we need to listen to them. It's sobering to listen to. And professional wrestling is lucky. It's lucky that it's such a niche sport that this is not a bigger story. I mean, within a week, it was almost up to 20 people that had been named as aggressors or transgressors. Matt Riddle was on that list. A day or two before he was supposed to debut on SmackDown. And WWE, I thought they were going to cut that whole segment, but they didn't. They stopped promoting it, but I thought they were going to cut that whole segment. Jack Gallagher, his ass is fired. Joe Coffey, fired. Two NXT UK wrestlers or referees, fired. They're looking into more guys there. Joey Ryan, he'll probably never wrestle again. David Starr will never wrestle again. Michael Elgin, suspended. Jimmy Havoc, suspended. Well, they claim he's going to therapy, but he's fucking suspended too. Sammy Guevara, who was probably one of the hottest guys in AEW, suspended. Jake Hager, suspended. He needs to be fucking buried in the sand somewhere. But so many individuals, and that's just the guys I know that I watch on TV often. There's so many guys from Progress and the British professional wrestling scene that are just done. And they should be done because their actions, their sexual assault, their rape, their acts against minors, their hazing, all of that stuff is a problem and it needs to be weeded out from professional wrestling. This is a time, we are in a time, I know some people don't like cancel culture, and I understand. I understand because it can get out of hand really quickly. However, this is a time where the the ability to share your story and to share your story far and wide is important because we have to cut a lot of we got to cut out some of this fat. And this just isn't within the professional wrestling industry, but it needs to be happening in MMA, jiu-jitsu, football, basketball, like across the board. All of these spaces where men are able to use their position and their privilege to hold down other individuals, namely women and other, I guess, minority men, if maybe you want to look at it that way. All of that shit needs to come to a head and it needs to stop. These names need to be outed. They need to be prosecuted in the full extent of the law where they can be prosecuted, and they need to be pushed out of the industries that they're in because clearly they can't behave in a way that is becoming of being a damn adult. And if they can't, they need to be pushed out of the privilege that they have. Being a professional wrestler isn't a right. I don't care how long you fucking trained. It's a privilege. Being in martial arts, instructing or training, all of that stuff is privileges. That's not a right. If you show that you are not someone of becoming of that space, you should go. It's something I've had to deal with personally recently. You should go. And I am glad to see it happen because we need to listen to these stories of these women. And yeah, that's really it. There's so much to really kind of talk about there. It's hard for me to even kind of report on it. That's why I haven't really written about it or anything like that. I've just been watching and observing because I think this is my space to listen and amplify the voices of the women who are coming forward. That's how I'm trying to serve in that space. But yeah, that's really it for today. Again, thank you for taking the time to listen to this podcast. I've been gone for 2 weeks. I'm back. Like Anderson Silva said, I back. I back. I will be back next week as well too. We have more professional wrestling to talk about. As always, you can find me at rgarcia_sports on Instagram and Twitter, where I'm doing my thing, talking my shit, and laughing along the way. MMA ratings, you can catch us at MMA Ratings.net on Instagram and Twitter. MMA Ratings.net is our flagship. Go there for all of our content. Our podcast, you can catch us on Anchor, Spotify, Apple iTunes, Google Podcasts, Breaker, and YouTube. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe to everything you see. Thank you, everyone. Stay safe over the holiday weekend and wear a fucking mask when you're around people. Have a good night.